And that was one of the reasons why Homeland Security was created, is because I'm on
to make sure there's a handoff or something like that.
I got a new drink now.
Oh, well, you know what? You know what? Nicely done. I like the cut of your jib there, sailor. I don't know if I told you that, but you definitely set up a nice jib. I have no idea what that means, but it sounds funny.
Well, you know,
it's nautical. It's nautical. I am a Captain Rathgar, but not that kind of captain. Not that kind.
I must have been a pirate in a past life, because I really do like rum and I really do like being on boats.
Ooh, well, I'm the closest to being a captain is that I might be Captain Crunch. so that might be a little bit more accurate. However, laughter dances with truth in Mostly Fictional Tales, where reality and fantasy engage in a tango. Welcome to Mostly Fictional Tales, where we explore the incredible stories of remarkable people. I am Rathgar, and today's guest is Troy Heiner. He's a career change specialist, retired NSA analyst, and a cancer survivor. During his tenure at the National Security Agency, Troy was thrust into a crisis when Edward Snowden's security leak derailed his mission for an entire year. As a key figure in resolving the aftermath, Troy's experiences offer us unique insights into resilience and transformation. He is now channeling these experiences into an upcoming book that promises to be a gripping account of navigating unprecedented challenges. Stay with us for an inspiring conversation that highlights Troy's journey from national security to personal reinvention. We are jumping right into the middle of my conversation with Troy, and we'll circle back to some of those basic details later. Oh, what does that mean? And, of course, that means we are back. We are back with Mostly Fictional Tales and Troy Heiner. All right, Troy, let's jump right back onto this. So you are technically going through equipment looking for...
Yeah, the real reason why I was there, I can't talk about, but...
Don't. We don't need to know about it.
But we were looking for other things, too, that might be disruptive to our country's interest in those embassies in various locations.
You know, that's something I briefly is the idea that a lot of people have. They've got this strange notion that the United States government is all powerful, that they are the deep state. They can just move heaven and earth to make something happen, and they're always watching you. But at the same time, they happen to not be able to do a job worth a goddamn, and you know they're all just lazy check takers who all work in the apparatus and bureaucracy, and they're all just dumb anyway. Tell me, am I driving you crazy right now with with the statement?
No, it is kind of funny how most people who think the worst of our government hold both of those things to be equally true.
How? How? I don't get it. I don't get it. You can't.
How my role turned kind of upside down when a certain guest of the Russian government decided to put a whole bunch of documents out there.
Yeah.
Not even really understanding them or even knowing what they were. Just, you know, he did it because he could, because he wanted to.
Now, we've had several people who do that. We've had, of course, a high-profile Army person, Chelsea Manning, did that during the Iraq War, having smuggled a CD of Lady Gaga music which was not Lady Gaga music. It was a bunch of documents about stuff we were, operating on the ground in Iraq at the time.
Right.
So
yeah,
we're not talking about the same person, right?
No, we're not talking about the same person. Because Chelsea Manning is not a guest of the Russian government.
That's right. That's right.
So,
are we actually allowed to? In this case, do we need to dance around the fellow's name, or
I don't think we need to anymore.
Okay,
there for a while, the agency was like, we weren't, he who shall not be named.
Well, here's my understanding about that is that it's not so much that now that that the fellow's name is out there, but knowing that you're talking about this guy in a certain context means that if somebody's listening in on your private conversation and you're talking about this fella and what he did, that what you might be talking about is also sensitive, right? It might be a flag to somebody listening in that, hey, Troy might be talking about this other thing that we want to know all about because he used that one guy's name, right?
One of my lifetime obligations now that I'm retired from those 3-letter agencies is that I must protect classified information.
Yeah.
And anything that I write or publish has to go through pre-publication review, including being on a show such as this.
Yeah.
So I have already received that. My story is okay to tell.
Okay.
Even using his name at this point,
So we are talking, friends at home, we are talking about Edward Snowden.
Edward Snowden. Yes.
I'll put his picture on up right over here. No, right there. That's Edward Snowden. He's not there right now while I'm saying this, but later in post, I'm going to create an Edward Snowden to be right there, and I'm pointing right at him. We're looking at you, buddy. We are looking at you. Okay, well, that's all we got here. Yeah. All right,
you're very, very smart, Edward, but maybe not as smart as you think.
Okay, so here's my pedestrian understanding of the Edward Snowden document leak. Is that Edward was working in a office in Hawaii.
Where I worked.
Where you worked. And this is where
I had just started to work.
Okay.
I had just gotten there.
You had just gotten there. And so my understanding is that Edward was shocked at some of the ease that it would take to take out a wiretap on anyone in the United States using a drop-down menu in an application. And that his idea was that, no, this really should go before a judge before a warrant is released to actually do this. And that in the interest of hunting down Osama bin Laden and other Al-Qaeda members, and as well as any other bad actors out in the world who are wanting to make secret plans and then execute them on Americans anywhere in the world or here, that we might need to be monitoring people associated with that fast. So the technology was set up to accommodate the speed at which an agent was given the ability to take out wiretaps and then get approval at a later time. Is my understanding, Troy, anywhere near what you're talking about?
You got some of it.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, this is the opportunity for you to see how my understanding is pedestrian and how you expand.
Right. So this was exactly what it became kind of my job to do.
Okay.
After, I was brought. So the way I tell the story is that when I got the assignment to go to NSA Hawaii's facility, I was given 3 mandates by my headquarters element. 1, get out of the compliance business, because for some reason the organization that I was going to run was in charge of compliance for the site. 2, improve relations with all of the customers of our information in the Pacific region, which now I guess we call the Indo-Pac region. And 3, get out of the compliance business. So it was pretty clear to me that
compliance was really something they were really, and compliance, that kind of sounds a little counterintuitive a little bit. Because when you kind of would think that you'd want people to comply, but what are they wanting you to specifically not to comply with?
So here was what kind of caused the perfect storm for why what Edward Snowden released to the world, and why, you know, maybe our agency had gotten kind of lax on compliance, right? Because there was a compliance apparatus for sure, right? That, you know, you couldn't just, you know, it's like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, pull from a drop down menu and call up this wiretap, and I'll get approval later, as you said.
You know, sometimes it's a lot easier to get forgiveness than it is to ever get permission.
Right. There was a very limited number of people who had that ability to do that, and they couldn't do it on their own. There had to be an intelligence need. There had to be a foreign nexus, right? So you couldn't spy on, you know, your girlfriend or the president or, you know, anything. It had to be someone who is foreign, or at least was being controlled by a foreign power. And you had to prove that in a FISA court. Now, that was one of the other things that Edward Snowden said, was that FISA courts were just a rubber stamp. He'd never been to one, so he didn't know.
Yeah, that seems to me to fall under one of those square of, well, I don't see how it's not a rubber stamp, so therefore it must be. You might be correct, but you don't. You shouldn't feel confident that your assessment is correct because you've never been to one.
Right. To get that access renewed, basically, it was like several boxes full of documents that needed to be submitted to the FISA court, and then the judge would, and they always would change the judge. So the judge would be like, "So you can't just like grab the emails out of thin air and read them." You know, it's like, okay, so we got to explain to this person how internet protocol works and TCP/IP, and, you know, because they don't know the they don't know signals.
Not their job. Not their job.
Yeah, it's not their job, right? Their job is, of these accesses and authorities and capabilities that the agency have, are they using them, you know, while also protecting the rights of American citizens, which included anybody who happened to be in the United States at the time. So you could be Carlos, the international terrorist, but once you landed in the United States, you were treated by our apparatus as if you were in, you know, you were an American citizen. You could not spy on you
this
anymore.
This has got to drive the CIA and NSA nuts. Of going, no, he got over the border. I can't listen to him anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
and that was one of the reasons why Homeland Security was created, is because I'm on
to make sure there's a handoff or something like that.
I got a new drink now.
Oh, well, you know what? You know what? Nicely done. I like the cut of your jib there, sailor. I don't know if I told you that, but you definitely set up a nice jib. I have no idea what that means, but it sounds funny.
Well, you know,
it's nautical. It's nautical. I am a Captain Rathgar, but yeah, not that kind of captain. Not that kind.
I must have been a pirate in a past life, because I really do like rum, and I really do like being on boats.
Ooh, well, I'm the closest to being a captain is that I might be Captain Crunch. So that might be a little bit more accurate. However,
and then I'm probably Captain Sensible, you know.
Well, Captain Sensible, you know, I really want to make a reference that makes you the very model of a modern major general, but there's a Pirates
not just
of the
an international
Penzance,
man of mystery.
Yeah, a Pirates of the Penzance crossover with being an intelligence agency fella for managing data and how things get piped and whatnot. So there we go.
Yeah. So to finish the story, right? You know, obviously, after things, you know, went to heck in a handbasket there in Hawaii, the site basically became a crime scene. There was, the FBI was all over the place investigating. There was crime
tape.
Who
else is involved?
There was tape. Yeah. Who else knew? Who else helped him? Right. Everybody was a suspect.
Yeah.
I just gotten there and I'm a suspect.
All right. The way you look. Come on.
I know. It's clear that I'm a pirate and I clearly want to.
You're clearly an information pirate. Right. Most pirates want the booty, but you want the bod.
The bod. The bits. Give me all the bits.
And the bod.
The bits and the bites and the bod.
The bits and the bites and the bod. What are y'all doing here? I've asked and heaped to. We have a letter of marque here from the royalty of our nation, and you will turn over your bits and parley. Download speeds, here we come.
So anyway, the one positive finding when the Inspector General and everybody else was done raking everybody over the coals, they said, you know what was good? The only good thing that happened is that everybody who was in the IT department where he worked was basically, they had a mission stand down day and they were given, the true facts about all of the things that were in place to make sure that we couldn't do everything that he was claiming.
Oh, not just facts, but true facts.
True facts.
Oh, true facts.
True facts. Because, opinions apparently are facts these days, and they're not necessarily true.
Yeah.
But
so they gave everybody else a clean bill of health after they left. They go, we've got an office here where everybody is doing an A-OK job, except for that Edward Snowden jerk face.
No, we didn't say that.
Well, maybe the Inspector General said that.
No, the Inspector General was like, you're all wrong, but the one thing that you did right was you had a mission stand down day and you explained to everybody and gave them the opportunity to ask questions. It's like, so can anybody really spy on the president or spy on their girlfriend? Or
I bet no.
There's a foreign intelligence need and someone from Congress or the president or somebody has actually requested us to do it. We can't task ourselves. And there's all, and getting approval from the FISA court is an annual process that takes 9 months.
Right.
That was the one good thing. And they said, whoever's in charge of compliance of this site needs to educate everybody on island that this is what we do.
Okay.
I had not gotten out of compliance quick enough. I was there a month.
Okay. All right.
So it was my job for the next year to run a series of seminars, mandatory attendance for everybody who was involved with the U.S. government in any capacity to attend this thing. And so that's what I did for a year.
So essentially,
and then I got out. And then the end of the story was I got out of the compliance business by any actual agency billet that I had when I went out there. I had lost them. They created the Office of Compliance within the National Security Agency, and they put field representatives at the large sites like NSA Hawaii, and they took my billets to stand that up. So that's how I got out of the compliance business, is because it was stood up in a different organization, and then I ended up not having any billets. So it was me and a bunch of military people. The actual job that I was asked to do was push the compliance functionality back down into the reporting elements. So that way they would actually understood how the compliance worked, and they would do their own fact check
in order to make sure that people are following rules, right?
Right. So they weren't relying on somebody else to do it, and they had forgotten or didn't completely understand what the rules were, which allowed for somebody like Edward Snowden to say, well, clearly this is possible. So this is absolutely what's going on. Because they didn't know. They didn't understand.
Just because something's possible doesn't mean that it's happening. Right.
Right.
I mean, that's a misnomer right there. I'm sure it's happened, but is it rampant?
Yes.
I don't think it ever was. And that sounds like what you're talking to me about. Is that no, that's not going on. Just because it can doesn't mean it is.
Yeah, and like you were saying, there were cases of that where somebody did it locally, right? In couldn't really do it in the United States, but when you're out in the field, you might have the ability to kind of tweak some authorities and it's like, I need to check up on my I need to make sure my girlfriend isn't a Russian spy or something like that. But
you know what? That might be actually something you want to check up on first. You don't want a Maria Butina,
Yeah, but you don't take that on. You don't task the SIGINT system to do that yourself, because if you do, you lose your security clearance and probably end up getting fired or arrested.
Or, as Edward was trying to intimate, that people were able to do that for at the drop of a hat, and that simply is not the case.
Any agency employee had that ability, and that was clearly not the case.
Okay,
because.
So not everybody could do it, but a lot of people could.
No, a handful of people could.
Only a handful. So it was even more narrow than that. So so Edward is
a top secret clearance wasn't good enough to do it. You needed that be read in on very special programs, and not everybody had that. So he was able to find the documentation about that application, but he didn't have access to it, and very few people did.
So literally, he couldn't
somehow
do it.
He was able to find the documentation and
so he couldn't do it. Part of his job was that no, you don't get access to it. Yes, this thing exists, but no, you don't get access to it. And he took that as a step to, well, if I don't have access to it, well, everybody else here must have access to it. And wow. Well, and he decided that this was important enough to reveal out into the public.
So the real, and you brought it up at the beginning of the conversation, is a lot of these things, the Patriot Act and a lot of these accesses and authorities were put in place after 9/11, and here we are in 2013. Bin Laden's dead.
Yeah.
Right. Do we still need those same accesses to operate in the same way or not? And actually, I think what happened was the agency, looked at some of that stuff and it's like, yeah, we don't, that's not really providing any kind of benefit anymore. Right.
Yeah.
And we're probably better off without that stuff, because now maybe it will be easier for us to get approvals for the kinds of things that we do need. Right?
Okay.
So we'll stop wasting our time trying to get approvals for stuff that's like, maybe.
So,
I don't know.
Yeah, perhaps another way to package what you are just now saying.
Less obtrusive, more in line with people's rights as U.S. citizens is probably a better way to go.
So a metaphor that is bubbling up is that the agency has gotten, a handful of Ferraris that they can use. And they're supercars. Everybody wants to use it. But, hey, having a budget line item for maintenance on Ferraris is eating up all of the budget maintenance that we could have had for a bunch of Ford Focuses, and then everybody could get to the store. Is that very similar?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it from that perspective, it's like somebody had to produce all of that documentation to go to the court, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, it was there were people, it was their full-time job to get approval for these, and that's all they did, right? They didn't do any analysis. They were just gathering the data and turning it over to the FISA courts. And
that's going to be maddening
we don't need to do that anymore.
We could be doing more productive work here, trying to do our job that we're trained to do. Instead, all we're doing is filling out court paperwork like a paralegal.
Yeah. So in the long run, right? I'm kind of a glass half full, optimistic guy.
I like that about you, Troy. I like that about you.
So in the long run, I think, you know, it was a crisis for our agency. It was a crisis for our country. It was a crisis for the president. But we ended off being better for it because I think now people maybe have a little bit more trust in the National Security Agency than they did before. That's how I view it.
Okay. That the idea that, hey, no, this was revealed and steps were taken to correct the thing. So at this moment here, Edward is still a resident inside of Russia. And he cannot currently travel anywhere because the State Department has revoked his passport. So he can't just go to another country unless that other country has something in the place.
He can cyber travel, though. I was at a friend of mine was at a conference where, you know, he was, you know, there was a robot with his face on the monitor.
Okay.
And he was attending the conference, you know, cybernetically.
But that's very similar to what you and I are right now doing. I mean, if I was trying to say, hey, we're down in Cabo San Lucas with some very nice Mai Tais that the very nice staff of the resort have given us, but no, you're in your apartment in Moscow in you know, now who's sad? Now, who is sad? It's you, Edward. It's you. You're sad. You're sad because you can't go to Cabo San Lucas. I understand Cabo San Lucas is really nice. I've never been there, but
I've been there once. And Sammy Hagar wasn't there, but I went to his place. You know.
Were you?
It's a lot smaller than you think it would be. Cabo Wabo is not very big.
I really want to work in a I can't drive 55 reference here, but it's a bit of a stretch. I haven't put in all the components yet for it to land in a very satisfying way. Oh well, you know, a boy could have dreams. I could have dreams that I could drive. He's got to have dreams. So you ended up basically having like a year of your life pretty much determined by his leak, that you are now having to give classes into how not to do what Edward Snowden was doing.
Yeah, and you know, it was one of the things I think that that people were surprised by was it was, you know, ask whatever questions that you want, because we had a panel of experts who understood the FISA approval process, who understood all of the things that were in place to make sure that people couldn't just test the system, you know, on their own authority, because, you know, a singular person doesn't have authority, right? The authorities of the National Security Agency really all rest with the director. They're his authorities, and then he can delegate them.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, we have authorities to do SIGINT, and we have authorities to do cybersecurity missions.
You know, if you like what we have been doing here on Mostly Fictional Tales, you can help us out in a few easy ways, and they're free. You can like this video, you can share, you can subscribe. But if you're a real difference maker, you head on over to Patreon and support me there. I cannot do the show without you. And until next time, I have been your host, Rathgar, and I advise you all, you be good. But if you cannot be good, don't be caught.